I think we got most of the people in the room. We got a lot of knowledge in here. What a blessing. But we're getting ready for part 2 for this afternoon, and I think the impartation's just been great so far. If you're willing to receive, we're receiving. So just, again, thank you guys, and turn it over to you, and here we go.
Okay, here we go. Oh, I thought Neil had this one. Okay, I had a good question. And it's on, actually, it was on picking a counselor. You thought you were just going to slide out of here, Robert. So here's the deal. I have been asked that by many, many pastors. You know, like, when or what's the difference between, you know, me as a pastor and someone coming for help versus, you know, when they need a little, I'm going to call it more technical help. And here's the deal. I went to a school that had some theology teaching. I probably had 3 classes. I do not consider myself a pastor with 3 classes of theology, right? When I am asked deeper theology questions, which happens in my counseling sessions, I'm like, let's go find your pastor. I need you to talk to someone who can answer, you know, what was going on during Calvinism. I have no idea. And why that's important to you, I have no idea either. But I need to send you to the right place, okay? I would tell pastors the same thing. There's a point when this is probably over your head. And I would call that point probably trauma. And there is a lot of it. In my field, there's the big T trauma where we've had, you know, the abuse, you know, of some level younger. And then there's a lot of small T trauma going on. Oh my gosh. You know, moves and even changes in church. It depends on the personality. I've had people come in, you know, they've stubbed their toe and they're in the worst place they'd ever been. And then someone who's had someone leave them 3 times and they're like, I'm getting on, it's all good. Right? And I, as a counselor, need to understand, am I dealing with someone who's really pushing emotions down? Or have they learned to really be that resilient? You know? But I don't expect a pastor to do that. It's not even fair to ask your pastor to do that. So that was the question, was, you know, what am I looking for? If you like the emotion focus, the attachment stuff, that person should have EFT if you're looking for couples counseling. But we're going to head into intimacy, and one of the biggest problems with intimacy, biggest problems, is some level of trauma somewhere in your life. Because most often I've been told, well, if you were raised in the church, because I'm old enough to have been raised in the church, you know, sex is bad, sex is bad, sex is bad, sex is bad, sex is bad. Okay, now today it's good. It's not that easy for our little brains to understand that. Actually, it's really hard. But if you have that on the fact that 1 in 4 girls are sexually abused, 1 in 5 boys. Reported. These are reported numbers. How many of those do you think get not reported? If you add that to the fact that there's a nightmare out there that we're trying to stop as a culture. It's the first time I've seen, you know, with the sex trafficking move, that we're trying to stop this. You know, we're trying to put an end to that. It's a very real and unfortunately pretty normal thing in counseling for me. So if you're sitting out there and you're thinking, oh no, no one has been through that, a huge percentage of people have been through that. But it does affect how you're going to see intimacy in your life. It's really hard to have been through that traumatic of experience and not think that, or think that everything's just going to be hunky-dory. right? So that was a really good question. Do we have any more before we get started? Do we have any more that... Neil and I are here just to seed into you and send you to Robert. He'll be taking up residence here. I think it's wonderful that you have someone that qualified that can work with you, because that's what I'm talking about. Is it's very difficult for a pastor to have all those hats that they have to wear, you know. More questions? No? All right, so I think we're going to jump into this because I think that there is a lot to this. And then if we get time to talk about the generations, we will, or maybe we can mention it even on Sunday, but we will do the best we can. What? Oh, they're already there. I'm not, though. My computer keeps stopping. Oh, I was going to mention resources. That was the other part of that question. Darn. Okay, resources at the Family Collective. So we have this marriage workshop that we will come and do in locations. I can't get into my own computer now. It doesn't believe in me. It's kicking me out. Oh. Voila. Okay, so resources. We have the marriage resource that you can actually go take online. So if you're sitting here and you're like, oh my gosh, I would have wanted that whole thing, I think it's like $49. You can have a complete 8-week course with Neil and I, where we go through every chapter. For a church, that's an amazing resource, number one. You know, number two, you may want to fill in some of the blanks for the things that we couldn't, you know, have helped you with in this process. So, and that may seem like a lot of money to some of you, but if you've gone to marriage counseling, it's $200 and $250 an hour. And we're going to send you through 8 hours of it for $49, okay? And basically, all that does is cover what it keeps to get the whole thing rolling, whatever it costs to keep the thing online. Then there is the premarital, which is the same thing. You can send somebody through that course online. And it has its own workbook. Both of these workbooks you can find on Amazon. And the website has the courses, the video courses. Then we have, I think there are about 4 a year, we do online groups. We only let about 4 or 5 couples in those groups because it gets too many, we can't do what we need to do. I have had time and time again, people are like, I am not going to get on there and talk about all my stuff. But in reality, if you understand group therapy, it is by far the greatest healing that I get for people. Because not only that they don't have to just talk about their things, but they get a chance to hear from other couples who are struggling with the same thing. Or different things that are equally as hard. So you can find, I think, those dates and the link for that online. Please tell me if it's not working. We'll be calling Rachel again. And then we have the new book. And I believe that's going to be a real big help for the next generation. I really believe that that's healing for them if you have people that are struggling with their identity, and I mean their physical identity. In the last chapter, I'm a little tough. I talk about physical identity and how God, in covenant, created a man and a woman and what it looks like, right? And give examples. I've actually worked with, one of my first cases was a young lady from church that came to me who was having an affair with an older woman in the church. And she today is happily married with 2 little boys. And what it took to restore her identity. It wasn't as simple as it looked, right? So that's some of the healing that we have in that. And I'm careful. I'm not, out there telling people that that it's bad and da-da-da-da-da. But I am saying that they haven't experienced the full unconditional love of the Lord. Because if they have, this would be a very hard condition for them to be in. So it's a very God-filled, scripture-filled book. So know that if you're sending it to someone who's not in that place. But I really think that's going to be a great resource. We've been on, TV stations and radio stations and podcasts, and I believe that it's, going to be very relevant because we are dealing with huge numbers of mental health right now. And I truly believe with all my heart, the Lord has told me, those are symptoms of a problem.
I might add, as we get ramped up, we have to become the army of God. Diane and I's heart is not just to go to churches. Our heart is to mobilize to impact your community. The devourer is loose in the earth, and we're not supposed to be spectators. And I don't want him taking our children. I don't want him taking your children. And so figuring out how do we do this. So we've spent a lot of time working to build excellent resource material. As Diane said, we get an F at marketing. That's not our heart.
F minus.
But I actually believe that God's plan is perfect. And I believe that this is going to sweep the world because his light is infectious when we do it right. We've really pressed in to say, Lord, anoint what we're doing. And then our call is for each of you. You all touch someone who's got a marriage challenge. We all have
or
children.
Relationship challenge.
We all have children who I'm scared what they have to go through, okay? So I've said to people, I'd love to mobilize you to say, take the course, but here's the deal. When you start taking the course on your own, no worky. You're going to run into some things that they're going to quit. So here's my challenge to you. God had a plan. And that plan is go through it with them. Put your arm around them and say, let us walk it out with you. That's what the Good Samaritan is. We have to walk out helping people to find the better path. Okay? Because the world has lied to them. We've all been lied to. We got to get a little angry about the lie. And we have to say a lie is a lie. Okay? The devil has told people lies. Okay? And so we have to stand up and begin to say we have to put God's perfect plan back in its rightful place. And so I want to challenge you at the end of this, don't just sit on it and say that was fun. Diane was smart. She is. But I want you to take it deeper in your own marriage. Keep working on it. But also begin to say, Lord, who are we supposed to work with? And put an arm around them, go through it with them. You'll be stunned. And then begin to tell the testimonies. I can tell you the fuel in Diane and I as we've traveled is the testimonies.
Oh, 100%.
The testimonies, I believe, are creating shouts in heaven. But it was the woman at the well that changed her city. It wasn't the religious leaders. Okay? So guys, we've got to mobilize. We've got to begin to catch the understanding that the only way this is going to get out there is as people walk through it. I tell people, it's cool that we have social media. I could care less.
Clearly, we could care less.
Until you go through the hard work of the course, you're not going to get healed. Seeing our smiley face is not going to do it for you. I hate to break it to you. Okay? But if you do the
He
hard
got
work...
healed from sarcasm. We both did.
I'm on step 11. I just want to encourage you. The biggest thing you're going to see is a payoff, because I had plenty of doubts. The biggest thing you're going to see as a payoff is when you start impacting others with it. And you see that paying off. And all of that is how God's kingdom actually works. On earth as it is in heaven is actually a battle plan. It's not a song.
That's good. I would add to what he's saying, if you are a little older, like I am here, a little older, this is your mandate to help the younger women, to help the younger couples. They're desperately wanting it. When we were in Israel, I was that person. I was so excited to be there. I was that person who sat in the front of the bus and asked that person all the questions. You know that person you really hate? Yeah, that was me. And I'm in the front with this guide, and who's Jewish. And I see this city that everything looked like it was under construction. You know, like there was scaffolding everywhere. And I said to him, well, what are we building? Like, what's happening here? Like, why are, you know, in my brain was that it had been bombed and they were building it. I don't know what I was thinking. But he said to me, oh, no, someone got married. I'm like, what? You know, he didn't answer. Oh, he didn't hear me. He's speaking Hebrew. He didn't hear me. So I said it again. I was like, no, I mean, why are they building so much? He's like, I answered you. Someone got married. Someone got married and they built another floor on the building. And I was sitting there going, oh my goodness, my mother-in-law is going to be one floor down, you know, and the kids are going to be one floor up. This is, oh my goodness, right? And then I started thinking, there'd be no more Social Security. We would have someone always watching children that loved our children. We would have someone always watching the elderly that loved our elderly. We would have always providing within family. I was like, wow. And the Lord said to me, I had that plan. And he reminded me that back in Jesus' time, when someone got married, they would go build a room on their house, right? That groom would go build a room on their house till it was time to get married, and then he would blow the trumpet and come get the bride, and they would get married, right? And then they would that's where they would honeymoon. Supposedly they were having time off, where they were provided for, you know, for a living, and they were learning how to be a couple. But my horror set in. Think about that. You're living on a clay room on your in-laws' house, right? And I know that when it comes to intimacy, everybody knew what everybody was doing and when they were doing it, right? But there was also this moment of constant interaction with someone that could teach you. This is how you do it with the kids. This is how you do it with your spouse. Here's how you handle that kind of problem. There was a constant family atmosphere where, you know, you could be not just taught, but uplifted even in how to handle the situation. In America, we're a ton more individualistic. There are a lot of countries that still do it this way. You know? But I think that that's important for us in the process of mobilizing you guys to take that understanding and go, all right, I am going to go find a younger couple that wants to take this course with me, and I'm going to do it. We're not about selling the course. We're about helping you restore. If we wanted to sell the course, we would go out and market. I think it's a really good course. But that's not the point. We want to help you get these couples restored because they're going to be the building blocks of a country. Of a country. Okay? But right now the enemy has taken his best shot at them. And they are wounded. Right? So I'd love for you to come alongside that dream. When I'm done with this, I'm going to put the code up again. We pray that we have the right code. But let's move into intimacy, okay? You ready? Now, if you do not want to hear some of the stuff, I'm going to not be graphic, but I'm going to be real. And I can honestly tell you, if you would have said to me, oh, Diane, you're a marriage counselor, you're going to sit and talk about sex, I would have said, no, thank you. I do not want to do that. But it is, if you're going to have a relationship, something that we need to talk about. Something that I want to tell you that the reason how the Lord convinced me of this was he said, but it was my gift and the world's taken it. It was my gift to my people, and the world is perverting it. So if you don't help them understand, this is what they're going to believe the worth. I also think that if we don't have people that come in and are credible experts on the data, then we're going to go Google it and we're going to get bad data. Right? Because you can Google and make yourself, I mean, you can just keep Googling, you can convince yourself about anything. Right? So I want to be able to present to you, you know, what I know actual research has been done on, and that this is true on how we should look at this. Okay? Don't fall asleep. We're going to talk about sex, people. All right, so here's a story. What? What? Well, I don't know. Oh, yes. I'm in a much different crowd here. So we went to this very large Baptist church that they had so many people sign up that they cleared out their sanctuary, you know, and put tables in. And I'm getting ready to present. And the pastor comes up to me. He's like, I just got to give you a couple of, you know, you should know things. And I'm like, whew, you could have called me. What is it now? What are we going to talk about? And he said, oh, you know, we don't have women in the pulpit. I'm like, what? For what? You know, as I'm taking the mic from him. And I'm like, I don't know how to help you with this, right? But he said, the second thing is, you know, you're in our sanctuary. I said, I realize that, and I love that you do. He said, well, you know, we really don't have women talking about orgasms in our sanctuary. I said, well, that's where we're going. Not for a long period of time, but we're going to talk about it. So yeah, I just need you to know that we're going to be that blunt with you. Because if I don't, you're going to get the information in the wrong place. Okay? And you're going to be jaded by your own experiences or, you know, what your grandmother has told me. Oh my gosh, people tell me that on their wedding night, you know, what their grandmother told them. I'm like, God bless, no matter, you're lucky you procreated. You know, I'm like, okay, you know, that's okay. And I want to speak this about wedding night. It is one of my biggest problems when it comes to couples counseling, because I think that there's a build-up to the wedding night. I know there is. You know, you've got putting together a wedding and picking out all the things and all the people that are going to come, and you're the main entertainment that day, right? And then you leave that night, you know, and that evening is supposed to be the best sex anyone has ever seen in this planet, right? And I usually have a couple that falls asleep on each other. And then they walk away and go, oh, we must not be compatible. If we were, then that would have been amazing, right? And I'm like, oh, or you could have been tired. Get up tomorrow morning and try again. Right? But don't hang your whole physical intimacy life on the fact of one of the most stressful days of your life, and you're supposed to just, be whatever. Right? I was going to say monkey, but whatever. Make sense? Okay, cool. A therapist has a theory that couples who make love once a day, don't get nervous, people, are the happiest. So he tests it out in a seminar, and he says, how many of people make love once a day? And there was a handful of people that raised their hands. And he said, how about once a week? And there are, a few more, that raised their hands. And he said, how about once a month? Because he realized he hadn't got all the hands up, So he's like, how about once a month, And a couple last stragglers. And he's watching this guy in the back just grinning, but he's never raised his hand, right? So he's like, how about once a year? He's like, I'm gonna get his vote, right? And the guy stands up, he's raising his hand, he's jumping up and down. And the therapist said, excuse me, sir, I gotta ask. If you are only making love to your spouse once a day, why are you so happy? And he said, today's the day. Right. Okay. So, why do couples struggle to stay intimate? It's the question that's baffled me since I started working in this field, because I emotionally won't connect and then I will physically disconnect. And I will say this for Christians, usually they will try to stay spiritually connected so they understand, that there is a place of connection, But those, look at this, I was going to hold up 3. Those 3 things need to stay connected in your life. All right? All 3. Researchers claim that intimacy is crucial to normal human functioning. If you've ever heard of Maslow's theory, it's the bottom of the, it's the bottom of the rung. It's a basic need, right? It can ward off depression, anxiety, and aggression. And sadly, I see time and time again where this ends up being the place where their relationships fall apart. And one of the key reasons, I think, is that men and women have differing points of view on what it means to be intimate, right? We've talked about this. We have, I feel emotionally connected to you, but when I'm physically connected to you, I feel emotionally connected to you, right? So for women, listen to this. God bless women. Here's our intimacy, an emotional connection, a sharing important issues, talking, women, we like to talk, listening to things about their husband's day, being able to cry about emotional events and experiences, being emotionally aware when feelings are hurt, and knowing one another's hopes and dreams. Women, right? Men, what's that list? A physical connection, foreplay, holding hands, physical time together, sexual intimacy, doing things together. Other than the last one, what is that telling you? They like to be touched. Men like to connect physically. Now, I need to tell you, I have asked God about this one. I'm like, what in the world were you why did you put 2 people together that connect in such very different ways? And I don't have an answer. Other than, I believe it's part of us learning how to walk in covenant. Because Neil's going to talk about this, but the reality is, covenant isn't about us. A contract is about us. But covenant is not about us. It's actually about the other person. When I'm walking in covenant, their needs are more important than mine. When I'm walking in the contract, well, both of our needs. I remember, Neil, when we first got married, I was going to be your modern wife. And I said, well, I'm not doing all the dishes and all the, all the chores, all myself. We're going to be 50-50 in this deal, right? I'm setting down the law. And without even blinking, he said to me, and when you can't do your 50, I'm going to do it. I'm like, oh, you're no fun. Right? I'm going to do 100%. That's walking in covenant. And that's not easy. And it's definitely not what the world's telling you. Right? So, can we play one of the short clips by Gungor? It's called His Stupid Ideas. You guys, this is old, but I won't drop it because he's a pastor, he's a comedian, and he's a marriage therapist. And he helps us understand some really hard topics in a way that aren't so funny. So if we could play that one.
Now, guys, girls, sorry. Now, girls, you can't forget that he gives himself huge bonus points for everything he does. So how can a woman earn huge bonus points with a man? So, sex is a great way to earn great bonus points with a man. But there's another way. And that is when you believe in him. Every man wants his wife to believe in him. Now, that sounds like a simple thing to do, especially to you young girls who haven't been married very long. But that's because you haven't heard the incredible, stupid ideas he's going to come up with yet. And a lot of women, they feel it's their God-given responsibility to try and keep their husbands humble or something, because he'll come up with this idea and they respond, that's stupid. Oh, that'll never work. You could never do that. And they don't realize when you talk to a man like that, you are doing incredible damage to him and to your relationship with him. Men, if you have not figured this out yet, men have very, very fragile egos. We just do. We might look like tough guys on the outside, but we're girly men on the inside because we can't handle that kind of, rejection and all that kind of stuff and criticism. Most men don't handle very well. And when women treat their husbands that way, when he tries to share his dreams with you and you dismiss them as stupid and ignorant and he can't do that, that's very, very, very damaging. Now, that's not to say you can't challenge his ideas. Keep him from destroying himself and the family. That's okay. But you need to be his number one fan. Because I'll tell you what happens. When you do that, you know what he learns? I cannot share my dreams with this woman. And men will stop telling their wives their dreams. If your husband never tells you his dreams, you guys might need to have a serious talk. And the reason he's not telling you is probably because you have given that kind of reactions to him. And it's very damaging to a man. And now you got yourself in a really bad place because almost miraculously at work there's some bimbo there who just accidentally hears one of his ideas and goes, oh, that would be a great idea. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, you'd be great at that. Oh, well, thank you very much. And now you're in serious trouble. You need to understand something, girls. Most affairs do not begin for sexual reasons. They begin for emotional ones. And you need to let that boy know that you are his number one fan. And it's hard for a lot of women. I'll tell you who really struggles with this. Women of professional men. Doctors, lawyers, preachers' wives. A lot of them really struggle in this. Why? Because they get so tired of hearing everybody praise their husband. Oh, you're so great. He's so great. He must be wonderful. He must be wonderful. I've heard with my own ears a woman, as soon as they came into the door, she says, everybody thinks you're so smart. I know what an idiot you are. think, what is she thinking? She's doing God's work somehow? Everybody thinks you're so great. I know how stupid you really are. Huge damage to the relationships. You need to let that boy know you are his #1 fan. And as much as I love it when people come up to me after these seminars and say, oh, you were great, I loved you, and I do love that because I have an ego the size of Texas, you know. And the one that means the most to me is when that cute redhead comes up to me and says, you did a great job today. And I know the only reason she says that is because I just said this now. And I don't care.
Okay. Now, women, that may seem a little harsh. Men, you will get your own. So, just so you know, we'll be equal opportunity. But when we look at sex, it's a lot like, and I love that slide, that it's a lot like Legos. Have you ever gotten, like, your kids this amazing Lego set, and you see this gorgeous project on the outside of the box, and you open it up and you dump it on the floor? It's like, oh my Lord, who's going to put all that together? How is that going to turn into that, right? And that's the gift of sex. All the pieces are there, but we're going to have to build it. We're going to have to learn it. We're going to have to learn each other. We're going to have to understand some things. So on the bottom of page 43, we're going to talk about, when it comes to sex, how do men and women compare? 43. Men tend to seek out sex more enthusiastically. Men are aroused visually. And this is such a disappointment for men to find out that women, once again, watching you in your underwear does nothing for them. Probably thinking how many loads of laundry I have to do. And it's not that we don't love you, it's that we're more emotionally driven, right? Which is totally different than men watching their wife get out of the shower. That's a whole different story, right? Because they're visually aroused. Men tend to think about sex more often. I don't even know what to say. Women just don't have it on I don't know what to say. And men, it's so disappointing when I have to say, we're going to put it on the calendar because we're going to make sure that we meet some needs, right? I mean, that we don't forget about it because it's important to our relationship. And men are like, how can you forget about this? I think about it every minute. I don't know. I don't know. You're going to have to go to God on this one. And maybe every now and then in every room I get a woman who says, no, I think about it all the time too. And I'm like, where's your husband? Because I need to tell him how lucky he is. Because as a rule, women they're built to connect emotionally, not physically. So they're not, when they feel physically and emotionally connected to you, whole different ballgame. Following me? Okay. Men achieve emotional connection through physical touch, and men speak 7,000 words a day. Now we'll start at the bottom of the other. Women speak 20,000 words a day. Yay! Right? We achieve emotional connection through communication. Women usually reach orgasm more slowly. And I know you guys have heard that, but if you haven't, just looking at you is not going to send us there. Right? It's going to take a little more time on your part. 1/4 of women say that I think about sex frequently. Like I said, God bless you if you got that woman. Hang on to her. And women are aroused by interaction, affection, and non-sexual touch. Right? Grab my hand, put your arm around me. I'm all of a sudden emotionally connecting. And one of the things that I will explain to you is there's chemicals released when it's oxytocin, when a bonding chemical, when a couple has an orgasm. Sorry, here comes the words, right? But here's the deal with oxytocin and the average oxytocin is she and I can sit down and have a chat. And our bonding is growing. We're friends. Next thing you know, we're going to have lunch and we're going to go on vacation together. And the next thing you know, we're moving into the same community. We're bonding, right? We've become close. Men, it's a conversation. It doesn't move the dial usually on that bonding chemical. The only time that a men's bonding chemical will reach the same level as a woman's, orgasm. And if you think about that, I was thinking about it one day and just started laughing. I was like, women talk all the way up and through sex because what are they doing? Bonding, right? And all of a sudden, after sex, men want to cuddle. Bonding, right? It's a natural consequence of what's happening to us, in the spiritual. But also, not only does that bonding chemical react like that, but when it's released in a couple, it keeps either one of them from looking somewhere else. Because it's a bonding chemical. Isn't that kind of cool? I thought that was really cool when I read that. I was like, that explains a lot of things. Now I want to tell you what happens to the rest of you on the next page. In sex. These are literally researched articles. It improves your heart health. Well, because it's exercise. You can do an average of, 5 calories a minute. It can lower your blood pressure. It's like a cure-all for everything. Possible reduction of prostate cancer. Better sleep, does anyone want that? Improved sexual desire, does anyone want that? Sex is like something that the less of it you have, the less of it you want. The more of it you have, you're bonded. So you guys are going to want to be connected, right? Spiritual. When men make love to their wives, the result is a stronger and more intimate connection. It keeps your immune system humming. Who doesn't want that? Sexually active people take fewer sick days. I know all the men are sitting there going, told you. Right? It improves women's bladder control. If you've had a baby, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Right? It works your pelvic floor muscles. Lowers heart attack risks. Lessens pain. They literally have research that says reach for sex before an aspirin. I'm like, what? That will lessen pain. Other studies have found fewer colds, lower bad cholesterol, improved memory, increased feelings of motivation. Do you know anything else that can give you all of that? I believe that in its origin, in the Garden of Eden, before it was possibly perverted in your life, if you've had abuse in any way, before it was possibly behaviorally created where, you might not see it the right way, before any of that happened, I just think this was just a natural act. A very, very, very natural act. Like eating, bathing. And it has turned into something a lot bigger than that. with a lot of rules and a lot of precautions and a lot of exceptions. And I want to leave you walking away saying, it is meant to be something enjoyed. Or I just don't think God left Adam and Eve just walking around buck naked and wondered what they were going to be doing with their time. I don't think he was concerned. Not only that, he was there. And saying it was good. Yeah, everybody's like, you're talking like I shouldn't move. Everybody doesn't want to move. Don't move. Yes, I know this is hard. Let's talk about the, on page, what page is this? 48, the 5 sex needs of men and women. What time is it, 2 o'clock? This comes from a book from Gary and Barb Rosberg, which they're a strong Christian couple, and I do like their research. The number one sexual need of men is mutual satisfaction. Now that may surprise some women. They want both of us to be happy about this sexual encounter. They do not want it to be just a one-way street. Right? They want your spouse to have enjoyed this time. Know that spouse if you're laying there like a board that doesn't move. Your spouse is saying, I need them to want to enjoy this. Right? The second most important need for men is connection, believe it or not. They want to feel connected too. And why? Because they get this bonding chemical. I mean, it's a real deal for them. And this is the one shot they have to get it. So they seek after it. And you women might be going, yes, they do. But they do seek after it because it feels connected to you, not to anyone else, to you. The third sexual need of a man is responsiveness from his wife. Now, do you have to sound like a porn movie? No. But she loves my jokes. I'm taking you with me on the road. They do want to know that was good, do more of that. That was not good, let's not do that one again. Right? That one did nothing for me but caused pain. And that's what responsive is. Like I said, it's not like this great porn movie. It's like, I need her to tell me when this is something she likes, because I'm going to literally try to do more of that. Right? But if we are your typical female, we've been told not to, get in the way, and we haven't felt that right to go in there and say, stop doing that. That does nothing. Let's try something else. And I have to tell you this about God bless men. They just like to do the same thing. They got kind of a formula, right? And women are not as formula driven. And so we might want to try something different. And I don't want that to burst your bubble or make you think you're a bad lover. Just plan B, okay? We're going to try something different, and that's okay. That actually means I'm involved. That actually means I'm paying attention. Right? And the fifth need is affirmation, and we just kind of heard that. You need to know I believe in you. I don't just believe in you as a lover, but I believe in you as a person. Men? Amen? Okay. I skipped over number 4? Oh, I did. Look at him. Listen to him.
Just for them.
For his wife to initiate intimacy. Absolutely. A lot of times we are told, women, that we should not be the pursuer. we should wait till they're in the mood and da-da-da-da-da. Now, that doesn't mean, you have to strip down their clothes and throw them on the bed. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, again, we're like, movies and porn are like helping us what this should look like. I'm saying that we should, actually, maybe flirt a little or say, I'm in the mood. Are you in the mood? It's that simple to be initiating. Okay? All right. All right, for women, the number one sexual need for women is, of course, their number 5, affirmation. I want to know I'm loved. That couple that was so real with me, and that husband was saying that he's coming into the kitchen and grabbing his wife's parts and she didn't feel turned on. No kidding. That's not affirming me. That's seeing me as body parts. Right? You understand that? So what we need to understand is we got to have what's sexy for my wife. I got to have the conversation so that she knows what's sexy, not what I think should be sexy. It may not turn out that way, right? Doing dishes might be sexy for my wife. And it's not like if you do the dishes, you're automatically going to have sex. That's not the deal. But it might be the thing that, like, helping me out in the house might be the thing that creates space for my spouse. You with me? Okay. Women also identified connection as their second highest need. So men and women both want to feel connected. So the good news about that is we don't want to have lifeless sex. We want to feel like we are bonded with you. Both of us, men and women. We want to feel like we're friends. Now, a lot of the things that we talked about earlier were some things that get in the way with that. Right? The third need for women is non-sexual touch, which can be so hard for men to understand. You got to touch me and not assume that we're running into the bedroom. Right? I know that works in men's brain, but it's okay to put your arm around me and not assume that we're going anywhere. It's okay. I know women that have come to me and said, I say, do you hug your husband? And like, no, because you know what's going to happen? Or, turn around and cuddle you at night. God forbid you do that in the middle of the night. Right? Because then it'll immediately have to lead to this. You got to give, women the chance to feel cuddled. Women? To feel like it's not automatically an invitation. So then when it does happen, it feels like I've already had that connection with you. And is this like natural for men? No. Just like the list that I read for men is not really natural for women. But it is things we have to work on when we're having sex with the opposite sex. Right? Not that we should have it with the same sex. Please don't hear that. But I'm saying we're working with somebody that's different than us. Okay, a woman's fourth need is spiritual intimacy. Men, I already talked with you about that. Women love to know that you're their safety and their covering, that you're praying for your household, for the kids. He works out of town a lot, and we're actually have not fallen into a great habit of this, but he used to call me every morning and pray over me and the kids. But we'll get back in that habit. You pray for you, just don't do it with me. Okay. Yeah. Over the phone, because we're not together. So people always say to me, well, we can't do it. I'm like, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Well, she's not out of bed yet. All right, then get in the car and start driving, and when she gets up, call her. Or text her and let her know that you're praying for the family. A woman's fifth is romance, and we have also talked about that a little. You know, because they need the emotional connection, they want to be romanced a little. Let me know that I'm still that princess for you. That I'm still the person that you look at and that you see stars in your eyes. Not just someone who cleans toilets. Right? But you're someone who I want to be with. That's what you're basically telling her. I want to be with you in this relationship. Okay? All right. It's kind of quiet in here. I know. I love this list because it kind of helps us understand that, again, that there's such differences in how we do this. Now, I do want to, in this book, we've got 3 chapters on sex. Why is that, people? That's how important it is. The 3rd is on the importance of actually dealing with sexual purity in your relationship. But let's talk through a couple of these. Neil, is it okay if I end like at 2:30? Okay. Is that too long? Okay. All right, so let's talk about some myths about sex. I think it's on page, there's not numbers, 51. Good job. These are huge, and they're hard. But number 1, that you should be aroused when the other person is. Does that surprise anyone? No. No. But I'm going to tell you, it can be a big fight for everyone, right? And it's almost heartbreaking to know that this, as well as everything else, might take negotiation. I remember sitting in this. It might take negotiation. It's not working out. The kids were horrible today. I am at my wit's end. And I do not have the bandwidth for this, right? But what's the negotiation? So if you come to me and you're saying, you know, I want to be intimate, I am against a hard no. I am for a win. So tonight is not going to work out for me. Not only do I have a headache, but I don't have any energy, right? But can you catch me in the morning? How about tomorrow night? How about this weekend? I mean, isn't that wonderful to know you're still thinking about me enough to let me know when you think it's going to work out? Are you with me on that? Yeah. And that's not too hard for women, and it helps us prepare. Because most often than not, we're not into the commando attack, you know? I get into bed and you're naked. I'm like, what? When was this conversation? You know? Right? And I'm like, all right, let's talk about this, because today has been like a Mach 10 day, not a good one. You know, and as disappointing as that can be, I want you to understand that that's me still loving you. I'm still loving you when I'm helping plan this. But I also have a life that may not have been a perfect day, right? Now, what's one way that I've seen students of this who get good at this do a better job? Start in the morning. Start sending me sexy texts all day long. I'm fully aware of what's going to happen, and I'll start preparing. Most likely, start preparing. Or I'll tell you why it's not going to happen. But I'm not in this, like I said, commando surprise. You haven't touched me or talked to me in 3 days, and all of a sudden, you know, this is where we're at. Right? You need to be able to not only understand, but prepare for this. Yeah. I would say on that, let's talk about testosterone. Men get about 3 shots a day. Men, I think it's important that you do. You're supposed to be hunters, gatherers, collectors. I wouldn't want you to not have the testosterone. But I do want you to understand that it's a chemical. So, when's the first time you get your first shot, guys? The first thing in the morning. You all know it. First thing in the morning. So your sexiest words aren't, "Are you awake?" You know? Because it's not probably even about her. You're actually doing what God planned for your body. Right? So I think it's important for us to be aware. What? Did I say something bad? Okay. Huh? You be you. Okay. Yeah, alrighty. So I just think it's important to be aware, you know, that we have all these chemical reactions in our body, right? So number 2, it's a woman's duty to keep her husband satisfied so he won't roam from home. Seriously. Right? Should we try to meet each other's needs as best we can? 100%. 100%. But if someone chooses to roam from home, sorry, Neil, they're going to roam from home. You know, there were a lot of other things that Neil could have chosen. He could have chosen a gambling addiction. He could have a Harley Davidson, a new car, or something. He could have chosen other things. Yeah, part of the deal. A Harley's part of the deal. You know, so all I'm saying is his choices, you know, in life are not necessarily, they should not be your guilt trip, right? They should not be your guilt trip. Again, let's go back to, should I work to make sure that they were both satisfied in this relationship? Sexually, yes. Yes. Because I'm trying to tell you what the benefit of it is. Well, I'm not going to say that. Number 3, a real man always produces an orgasm for his wife. Orgasms are not natural for women. It's almost like they got to be earned. I'm sorry. If you're a woman, you know what I'm talking about. And I have had people come up to me after some of these events and they're like, "I've never had an orgasm." I'm like, "Well, you and your husband, you got work to do. Because you're going to enjoy this thing a lot more when you do." Think about that, gentlemen. You are having this orgasm almost every time. And think about if your wife does not experience that pleasure. So it's going to be work for you to get her to that place. A lot of times. A lot of times, like, connecting emotionally. A lot of times, asking questions like, what do you like? What do you don't like? And I'm not going to go into that. We're not going to talk about sexual positions. But I do have resources in the book if that's your problem. Because I believe, good Christian resources actually, that I believe that you should have good resources so you're not seeking this out in the wrong place. During sex, the man always takes the lead. We already talked about that. Number 5, to be truly sexy and have a great sex life, a woman must be multi-orgasmic. Now, I don't know where you're seeing that, probably on porn. And are women, can they be? Absolutely. Their bodies were built that way. Sorry, men. Our bodies were built to do that. Do we think it's a better sexual experience to have 4 orgasms? No. No. We're just as happy, if we can get to that one place. It's just as fun, right? But because of what we're seeing on porn and movies and whatever else, a lot of times men think, well, that's my end goal. I've got to get to that place. You with me? Yes? You guys, some of you don't look very happy. No, you don't. All right, number 6, oral sex is what a wife or a husband needs to be turned on. All right, people always ask me this question. Tell me about oral sex. Should oral sex be in a marriage, right? I've looked in the Bible. I don't see it. And that's a bummer, because that's where I always want to get my instruction from. So I'm going to go here. If one or both of you are shamed by this act, it is not good for you. It is not good for your marriage, because it's probably not turning your spouse on. So no matter what you've heard, no matter what you've seen, no matter what a president has done, if it's not part of your sensual experience, then it's not for you. Are you with me? And you have to respect that, because the worst thing in the world would be for one of you to feel a bunch of shame in the process of this, experience. That's not going to make you feel closer together. And I need to tell you that because of LGBTQ sex and because of porn, we're hearing a lot about anal sex. I know, everybody's cringing, I know. But again, if we're not going to talk about it here, then we're going to get our information in the wrong place. Now, as far as that is concerned, there are verses about unnatural desires and what that looks like. But I'm telling you that, the biggest thing I'm telling you is that there isn't the number of nerve endings that there is in your normal reproductive parts. God put the most nerve endings in our reproductive parts, in our entire body. So either that was just sick in the head, or it was meant for fun. And when it comes to anal sex, we don't see that. It doesn't have the same pleasure for a couple. And I think that there's a biblical response that I don't think that's a good place for you to be. Because most often when we get there, we've been watching something we shouldn't be watching. Because it is not something that would naturally come to your head. I don't think about that naturally. Right? And especially when we go to other countries, it's a big thing. I mean, I had a lady say, if in fact I don't give that to my spouse, then he'll go find a guy. I'm like, what? But that's how perverted the whole thing can get. So I think that one's kind of some territory that you really need to consider that's probably not healthy for the two of you. Now, some people might say the same thing about oral sex. I'm going to leave that to your leadership to decide, to talk to you. Okay, so I don't want you to walk away and say, Diane said, right? Number 8, to be good at sex, the sexual preferences or the sexual experience should always be perfect. Is anything always perfect? No. Sometimes, guys, it just doesn't work out, right? Nope, all of you are perfect. Okay. Right? Sometimes, for whatever reason, it just does not work out. And that does not mean that I am not in love with my spouse. That does not mean that she's not special. It could be just plain old, I'm getting older. I'm just getting older. Or there's a level of stress in my life. I would say 2 things. Get up and try again, number 1. And number 2, you might need to talk to your doctor. Because we're finding out all kinds of things about stress and vitamin D being responsible with not being able to perform. Okay? Okay. It's so quiet. Sex must be spontaneous. No. Boy, that is in the movies, isn't it, though? You just look at me across the room and bam, we're ready to go. Right? And as a rule, I have to plan this event usually. It would be awesome if it was spontaneous. Try it someday. It might be amazing in your household. But as a rule, this is something that, I'm trying to figure out. Actually, I had a lady who was sitting with me, and I was talking with her about this, and she goes, well, I can't talk very loud because my mother-in-law is right behind you. And I said, okay. And she said, well, my mother-in-law keeps the babies on Thursday, and, I don't know what to tell you. Thursdays are our day. And I'm like, okay. But she's having to plan it because she got 4 little babies. What's a good time to be alone with her spouse? And I totally don't want you, with an open door policy with your kids. This is not the way for them to learn about this. So when you got a bunch of little kids running around, it's a good thing for you to think about, what's this going to look like? Right? Okay? And it's normal to have the same desire for sex. We talked about that. Huh? Yep. So are we ready for the next video?
And let me say this to you. A lot of guys' way of initiating sex is they'll ask their wife, you want to have sex? And the answer more often than not is, no. Why would you ask a question that's most likely to be responded with a no? I never ask my wife if she wants to have sex. Never. I just go for it. Because I am the initiator. You may not feel like it now, but you will when I'm finished. Man, if your idea of romance and foreplay is, you want to have sex? There's something wrong with you. Come on, rise up. Take your place. Now check this out, Song of Solomon. I love this. He writes, your stature is like that of the palm tree, and your breasts are like clusters of fruit. I said to myself, I will climb the palm tree. Now take hold of the fruit. Hallelujah! Now the problem here is most guys don't want to take the time to climb the palm tree. They just want to hop in a cherry picker and swing in and grab the coconuts. Hey, baby, come on. You want to have sex? You awake? Come on. Stop that. You've got to learn how to climb the palm tree. You got to learn how to touch the girl, how to romance the girl. And you need to be romantic. You got to mix it up. Don't be so puking predictable. A lot of you guys, the minute you touch her, she knows what's coming. Why does she act like that? Because you're so obvious. You're so predictable. Women are not interested in a formula. Men are by nature formulaic. You do this, you do that, you get that. You do this, you do that, you get that. You do that. All right? And she's not, you do that every time with her. She just, get away from me. You need to mix it up. Gotta learn how to climb the palm tree. You really want great foreplay? Turn it into a 24-hour deal. I call it slow roasting your woman. Man, it rocks. Don't be in such a hurry. Kiss the girl, leave her alone. Flirt with the girl, leave her alone. Touch the girl, leave her alone. Keep her guessing. What's going on? What is this? My wife will come out of the shower and say, hey, baby, just lay down. I'll give her a back rub and she'll fall asleep. And I'll cover her up and I'll just crawl into bed next to her, turn off the light and go to sleep. So I couldn't do that, Pastor. I'd go blind. You won't go blind. You've got to learn how to climb it up on a tree. Take it a time. Don't worry about this desire thing. You see, I'm waiting for her to have all this desire on front. Stop. You're going to be a very old man before you have sex again. and let me say this.
Okay, he's funny, isn't he? You can actually get a bunch of his stuff on YouTube. Look under Gungor. But he has a lot of relationship help, not just the sexual help, but it's what we've been talking about. And it's a good way to kind of release some tension about a really hard topic that shouldn't have been, because it's our gift and we should be the experts at it. The world should be coming to us, not to porn. We should be running around and they should say, that church, not necessarily, but those church people are so happy with their sex life. We need what they've got. Right? Because it was God's gift to us. And I think the world has perverted it. You know? So, better sex connections on page 54. I'm going to allow you to just kind of look at that because I want to cover one thing before Neil comes up. And then I'll be done talking with you, and please don't applaud. Okay. Allow the space to be natural. Connect physically some way every day. Spend time kissing. There is so much research on just taking a little longer with a kiss. You know, sometimes we get close, we land in, and we don't even hit the mouth, right? It's somewhere near her face. You know, just hang on to her a little bit. Do a little kiss. You know your wife. You know, expand her nurturing needs. Know what her nurturing needs. I want to know what they're laughing at because it's probably pretty good. Know your husband, right? That's good. This is funny stuff, but hard stuff. Define sexual etiquette that will reduce stress. That's kind of the things that we kind of talk about. You know, it will reduce stress for both of you. We know this is working, this is not working. I don't know why the Holy Spirit dropped this in my spirit, but I'm going to tell you this. As a rule, women, no matter how awesome they are, they don't like their bodies. We always got something that somebody else looks better in, or around, or no matter what it is. And the reality is, women, your husband really likes your body. They really like it. They are not seeing the imperfections that you are seeing. They are seeing the gift God gave them. Right? And so we have a healing exercise that we do, and I think it was way back at the beginning in chapter 1, where it's called uncovering yourself. And I would do this with your spouse. Wrap your arms around them, and like Angela was telling us, where the enemy has come against your wife's body, he's come against you, and get serious with that. You tell the enemy that is no place for him to be. Right? And you pray over that body. So that wife knows how special that body is to you and to God. You hear me on that? Because one of the major things that keep us from that sexual etiquette part, like, we don't like to be out nude in front of you because we don't think we look that good. And that is 100% the enemy saying, good, I got one more thing I'm just going to separate the two of them. So like I said, men, take your authority over that. come against those words that have been said over her, those things that potentially have been done to her. And I'm not going to leave us to just men. I'm going to say opposite of that, because I know there's enough of trauma with boys as well. Women, wrap your arms around this boy and you let him know that this is the perfect body for you. Right? I think you were telling me about that earlier. Not this, but you were saying that's something that come against you. And we talked about planning and scheduling. There's a lot of resources on here that I talked about, and pages 56 and 57 are what are your sexual preferences, and I do expect them to be turned into Pastor Ralph. He's like, he's turning red. No. And Robert doesn't even want those. No. Okay, so, but I do want you to talk about it. When's the last time you had a well check over your sexual life in your household? I'm not asking you to grade your spouse. That will go way wrong. But I am saying, what are the things that we enjoy or not enjoy? Let's talk about it. Because we will do that with our spiritual life. Hopefully, we'll do that with our spiritual life in the church. But we should do that with our emotional life and our physical life as well. We should sit down. One of my middle son, I tell you, they drive me nuts, but they have every year. They take off for half a day and they go do this. They talk about how things are going in their household. And part of me, I don't know, like if you and I would make it 4 hours with that stuff. But the reality is they have lunch together and they talk about how things are going. What couldn't be more healthy than that? If there's anything that you could take away, do that. Spend some time on that. But if you've also got, a couple of sexual dreams that you've never wanted to bring to your spouse, this is the time. This is the time. Like I said, don't put stuff out on the internet because I'm positive you can find it. But y'all want to dress up and do what you want to do. You do what you want to do in your house. As long as the two of you are agreeing and no one's shamed by this. Right? You don't want to just use your bedroom, you want to use the kitchen floor, whatever. Keep your shades drawn. We don't want the neighbors to watch. But you get my point. There may be things that might seem fun to you, and your spouse may say, or, let's try that. Okay? I know, we're talking about hard stuff. All right, the last thing I'm going to talk about is page 58, 59, trauma in marriage. And this is what we were talking about. If, in fact, you have had a situation where you've had childhood trauma with some level of sex, whether it was abuse, whether, I don't know, maybe you tried out an alternative lifestyle at one point in your life. It's not very uncommon. Maybe not with someone our ages, but you get to younger couples and it's not uncommon. So how does that trauma affect your sexual life is these pages. And how do you help your spouse on the next pages, 60 and 61, if this is something that they live through and it is affecting your sex life? You could have been having sex with them for 40 years and you're going, oh, I didn't realize that this is why they do this. Because they probably had that trauma. So walking back and helping that heal, never on your own. The two of you got to sit down together. But this is a way to walk back into kind of a healthy relationship. And I know this is weird marriage material, like, oh, she got that in there. Because it is so common. And we're not talking about it. So I want couples to have the resources they need. Right? Because I promise you, If you older people are going to do, like me, older people, are going to go get a younger couple and help mentor them, there's a good chance that you're running right into this territory. And just like me, you'd have sat with a deer in the headlights going, what? What? You did what? You know, I have couples that, you know, one will pimp the other. These are Christian couples. Because we're watching bad stuff. Our models are bad stuff. Right? So once we walk away from that's not healthy, then I got to help them get to a healthy place. All right. So Neil is going to come and talk to you about an exciting topic. Keeping your sexual life pure. Do you need this?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you guys for following me back there. You're amazing.
Does everybody want to stand up and do a stretch break to make sure you get the blood flowing, get that shot of testosterone? You guys are hanging in there. You're going to find I'm going to move quickly. She's a teacher. I'm a drill sergeant. So hang on. But I want you to connect with Diane's heart for what she desires for your marriage to be. Okay? She wants you to enjoy all that God has for you. And she's worked really hard on all this content because she wants the church to be offensive. We've not been very offensive. Okay? So everything that she's poured in here, we always do these conferences, and I always kid Diane, she packs about 10 hours more than you can ever humanly get through. But here's the deal, do the work. And when you do the work, it's going to keep paying off for you. Diane and I have learned skills in our 60s that we wish we'd learned in our 30s. Okay? And when we look back, we say, why didn't anyone tell us? Or where was the material? Okay? And so our goal for you is to give you the material. Now, we can't force feed you. I'd try, I promise. But I want you to have all that God intended. You know, I often tell couples, you can sit back down if you're... I tell couples, you know, early on in our marriage, it's almost like getting out the old home video. We all started marriage with a dream of what it was going to look like. And then life happened, and we're trying to figure out how to hold some of those pieces together. But I want to give you a new thought. The new thought is God's dream for your marriage. What if you could press into God and figure out what God wanted for your marriage? I think if you could see it clearly, it would rock you to the core. I think it would excite you beyond any vacation you could ever dream up. You know, we need to come alive. Sometimes at this stage of our life, we get a little cynical because we think we've been there, done that. We've seen it all. And I believe that God actually knows us better than we know ourselves. And he refers to this as a mystery. And a mystery has to be uncovered. It has to be searched out. We have to go after it. And I believe that God didn't give us a recipe card for our marriage because he knew you and I wouldn't value it. We would think it was just a checklist. He wants to engage all of you. And so if we're honest with ourselves, we've fallen into bad habits. It's not that the dream died, so we've fallen into some bad habits. And I would just ask you to consider finding out the dream that God has over your marriage. Okay? Let that be the thing that hovers and gives you a chance to say, how do we both chase after that? Okay? I'm going to deal with three topics. Pornography, finances, and covenant. Okay? So I'm going to go straight at pornography, and the reason we've put it in the book is because it's out there. And again, as churches, we've been too silent. I believe pornography is the leprosy of our generation. It is eating the spiritual and the emotional well-being of people in a staggering way. Because it's readily available. It's on people's phone. Anywhere you go. I often get on a plane. There are people sitting in seats on airplanes watching porn. Okay? I just want to talk to you a little bit about how do we protect our marriage. And I spent time on it because I had to step back when I went through what I went through. And I had to say, how do I reestablish not only trust, but safety spiritually around my home? And I think it's on, and for you on the PowerPoint, I'm not even going to ask you to try to follow. I'm going to do it out of the workbook. So page 63. Pardon? What? What? Oh, good. How do we safeguard our marriage? Because step one, and I will share some of the statistics, but step one is the closer I am to God, the harder it is to participate in wrong things. So I want to challenge you. You don't just read your Bible and pray because some preacher told you that when you're in 7th grade. It's setting the standard for what you allow into your life. Praying with our spouse daily, we talked about that. Guys, I want to help you in on the lies that you've told yourself. Your wife knows when things are wrong. God knows when things are wrong, but so does your wife. Give her permission to check you. It's important. Protect your eyes. Set up accountability. We have no passwords that either of us don't know in our house. Doesn't exist. And it might not be because you think you don't need it. I tell people, give the devil no corner. He has no opportunity if everything is transparent. Transparency is a beautiful thing. There's nothing hidden. Guard your heart because it directs your mind. Beware of opposite-sex friends without your spouse involved. Be careful who you allow to speak into your life and recognize there's a progression to sin. What seems little today has an end point. I think we live in a period of time where we all talk about identity theft as if it was financial. I'd like to speak to you about identity theft that comes in through this avenue. It will steal your identity. Okay? It's counterfeit. God saw fit to make one of the dwelling places that he has in you. If what you have is sacred to God, it needs to be sacred to you. We need to understand the gravity. Page 64, and this breaks my heart, and it's getting worse for the next generation. Pornography, 71% of men, 29% of women, 2.4 million people online. Pornhub, the amount of downloading, more than 14 videos per person on the planet. 40 million men. People addicted to porn. I want to tell you that porn is more addictive than cocaine. More addictive than hard drugs. And so if it's going on, and we have resources available, we do some teaching, but there is a course that's based out of Minneapolis. It's called Faithful and True. It's one of the better resources we often do. I want to tell you, I would encourage you to have a men's group available so that people have a way to be walked out of that addiction. It's a reality, even if it's not talked about. And so we have to take territory, and we have to create safe space, and we have to rescue people, because it's destroying marriages. It's like allowing a third person into your covenant. There are all kinds of pieces, page 66 and 67. But I want to take you to page 71. How do we walk through it if you have it going on in your home? Learn to communicate clearly and concisely about the addiction. The way to stop is expose. That's step one. So your phone should get inspected. Your computer should get inspected. You need to spell out clearly how one walks out of it. And I'm going to tell you, you need other people to walk with you on it. And sometimes the spouse is not the best person to walk you through. They can be part of an accountability. But I want to say to you, it's important that that is walked out. And it takes time. But we need to have a standard of absolute purity. We have been sold by the world that it's a little thing. They've normalized it so quickly in society, where it used to be you're embarrassed to go to a drugstore to find a bad magazine. Today it's so available that we think it's normal. You talk about it in any general audience and people think it's normal. But I want to tell you, as a church, the number one day for viewing porn is Sunday. Okay? It's everywhere, it's hideous, and it's as big a problem inside the church. And I don't say that as judgment. I say that to ready you to say, if we want to help rescue families, if we want to help rescue marriages, we have to deal with the topic of porn. Because it's already here. And it's a significant item in our midst. And so how do we create that safe place? How do we ensure that it is something that's walked out? The thing we have to realize with sin is it's always counterfeit. It's after a cheap version that you didn't have to work at. Okay? And once it ensnares you, it devours you. The devil has only one plan. It's to deceive you and to devour you. We're after your destruction. And so I want you to understand how serious this is, and we have to escalate it in our churches so that we have an aggressive way to help people. Okay? Shame is used to keep things hidden. It's one of the primary strategies of the devil. I believe that's why God dealt with that in the Garden of Eden. If you keep things hidden, guess who it's hidden from? Only you. It's the lie you tell yourself. And so I want to help empower you to understand how to begin to fight this, because we all have to mobilize. In our church, but especially in the younger generation, because the younger generation doesn't even think it's wrong. If you do an attitudinal study, 70% of them have seen it, down to the age of 8, and they don't see anything wrong with it. Okay? So we have a lot of work to do here, and I want to just challenge you. One of the best things you're going to do for the next generation is protect them so that they don't get ensnared before they're able to make wise choices, so that they can make smart choices. Okay? But as a church, we have to be able to deal with this reality so that people can reveal their weakness. Okay? It's a hard line to walk. And my hat's off to you as pastors, but I have to tell you, we have to be willing to take those people in who need our help. Okay? So it's a real thing. There are ways to safeguard it. There is no place. Diane and I travel extensively in other countries, and I can tell you it's more heartbreaking than here. It is so normalized. And the shame that it causes, often for women, it's heartbreaking. And people's hearts are so hardened over pornography that I believe it's one of the deadliest things that the devil is doing to ensnare people's dreams and their livelihoods. Okay, so we've got to tackle it. That was uplifting. Thank you, Neil. But there are resources available. You don't have to necessarily be the only person. I would encourage that we've had young men lead groups. Like I said, we're happy to help. I think there are programs, there aren't enough of them. Some of them are residential care, and we've had people from foreign countries come and go into residential care to break it in certain cases, but it's a significant issue. Okay. Okay. Life values, I'm going to, it's chapter 8. And since you all have been at it a while, we go through this with the newer married couples to try to help them expose where their experiences that they brought into the marriage might not all sync up. We call this the little foxes category because they eat at the foundation where one of the spouses has an expectation that the other spouse knows nothing about, and they eat away at the covenant because they have an unexpressed, unmet need. And so we walk through a number of topics: work balance, household chores, values, finances. And in each section, we ask you 3 questions. 1, what were the important core values that you brought into the marriage under that topic? You might have been in a home where one worked outside the home, one did not. You might have been in a home where they both worked outside. It creates different realities. What are the core values that are most important to our family today? Write them down. What are the core values that we want to work to establish in the future? How do we dovetail together that new establishment of how our family is going to function? And I often find it's not that we intend to do those divisively, it's that they eat at the foundation of our marriage because we never stopped to ask. We didn't stop to have a conversation about those important topics, to say, how are we going to do those in our family? How can we come to an agreement? Okay? Page 78, we talk about creating healthy spiritual connection and how a strong foundation is built. I grew up in a home where every morning I woke up, my father was on his knees praying over our family. He and my mother had a devotion every day. And they would go through the Bible. And it was very visible. It created an expectation. My dad never told me how it was supposed to work. He showed me by example. And I want to encourage you that spiritually, Diane said it's the sexiest thing you can do, and you don't need any blue pills to do this. Your spiritual foundation for your family is vitally important. And I would argue it is going to not only impact your relationship with your spouse, it's going to impact your relationship with your children, and it's going to speak volumes to all the people you come in contact with. I want to encourage you in your marriage, because I believe one of the ways we've steered off course is we think that all of our faith is verbal. And we often try to train people as if their faith was in their mind. Okay? And when I read the Bible, it says, out of your belly flows rivers of living water. I think it's fascinating, and maybe the authors of the Bible made a mistake or not. It doesn't say out of their brain, it doesn't say out of their mouth, it says out of their innermost being. I want to encourage you as a couple that as you bond together spiritually, there's going to be a power that people run into when they meet you. And I'm going to tell you that by telling you a story. Zacchaeus in the Bible, he was a banker. He was despised by everyone. Actually, he was a tax collector. I refer to him as a banker because we have the same, sort of occupied status. But I want you to think about what was going on in that story that's told in the Bible. It says that he climbed a tree. Everybody in town hated him. The normal expectation, I try to tell people, wouldn't be that you try to put yourself out there where people could see you. Okay? Now, how did he know that what Jesus was coming to town and had something for him? He didn't Google Jesus. He didn't have part of the advanced marketing for the conference that Jesus was holding in town. He felt something in the inner man. He felt something that drew him. That drawing was because God put it there to pull him in to a relationship. So I want to help you come alive, that you and I carry something. That as we cultivate our spiritual connection as husband and wife, there's going to be a drawing, there's an expectation, there's a pregnancy that happens in the atmosphere when you show up. Okay? And it's going to start to cause life to burst forth in people. We need to trust that power. We need to be aware. We need to cultivate that. Because we live in an era where we aren't going to argue people into heaven. How many of you recognize it's not working? Okay. But there's a greater power. And it's not anger. There's a greater power. And I believe that it's a desperate cry of the inner man in the world we live in this time. They're desperate for real power. So I want to take you on a little bit of a journey here. Okay. I'm going to do finances here. And it actually, because I'm a banker, I get asked this all the time. And communication, sex, and finances are the three hot topics that we always have to talk about in marriage. So you heard the expert on communication and sex, and now you get to talk about that junk called finance, me. Okay. I wish mine was as exciting as sex. You know, if you have a positive checking account balance, I guess you get some oxytocin. I don't know. But I want to tell you and help show you some things around finances that I want to begin to help us walk through. And it's on page 83. I believe that everything in God's kingdom was meant for you to walk in freedom. That is a core principle of God's kingdom. And it's found in John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come that you may have life and have it abundantly. In fact, the Bible describes abundantly, not with a financial ledger. He says beyond what you can ask or think. Some of you need to meditate on John 10:10. The Lord wants you to live out of His abundance. His abundance. In fact, I find I have to argue with church members a lot on this. You see, the Lord showed me the Garden of Eden, the Promised Land, and heaven. They all appear abundant to me. The Garden of Eden, past, the Promised Land, present, heaven, future, all abundant. They all speak of the very nature of who God is. I don't think He's wavered from who He is. Now, a lot of us, because of religion, decided it's a bad thing. And it makes you holier if you don't have. Okay? And I'm not just speaking about finances here. I want to begin to take the cap off of what we thought we were supposed to walk in, because our Father paid a deep price for you to have freedom and much more than you want or understand. He wants us to partake. I'm going to start, sorry, she went off course too. It's my defensive nature coming out. One morning I was praying and the Lord said to me, I'd like to talk to you about the prodigal. And if you hadn't picked up by now, I wasn't a great student, so he asked me questions. I believe because I'm enrolled in the remedial course of learning to follow God. He has a very important part of that with my life. And I give him all the credit and the blame. But I said to him, I've heard every sermon there is on the prodigal. And he said to me, you haven't heard mine. Ouch. See, my Father doesn't just uplift me, He does do a little pruning. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, what's the most important component of that story in the Bible? I'm like, okay, here comes the setup. I have no idea. He said to me, it was the house. I said, you're right, I haven't heard that teaching. He said they already had everything they ever needed already available to them in their Father's house. It was their brokenness that didn't let them see it. It was already provided. The Father didn't have to die. It was already available. If there's something I want you to take away from this section, it's that your Father has already made full provision. Now, because I don't know how or why, doesn't discount that in any measure. And I've got to stop deciding God has a problem, and I've got to start deciding I might not understand it. And I have to all have a really deep prayer that says, Lord, show me. That's it. Lord, show me. I don't understand. See, our relationship with our Heavenly Father, He's perfect wisdom, and He wants nothing but the best for me. Why wouldn't I go to Him? So I should go to Him and say, show me. I don't know. And so as I walk through this, I want to give you some insight on how to walk out your finances. And there are lots of great courses on finance. I'm not going to take you through all of it, but I want to give you a snippet from my perspective. and I give them to you in 4 easy steps. Step number 1, set near-term and long-term financial goals. Near-term meaning those goals that I want to accomplish this year, in the next 12 months. Okay? Long-term, those that are probably going to take 3 or 5 years. And there's a whole list of those. It could be reduce debt. It could be pay for school. It could be children. It could be new job. It could be start a business. But we need to clearly outline the goals. And I'm going to tell you this is the most important first step, because we often start on a budget with no idea what the goal is. If I don't know why I'm doing a budget and I don't agree with my spouse on why I'm doing a budget, it's not going to work. It's just a task. And the accountants love it, and it's no fun because it's not connected to a why. Okay? So I want to challenge you in your family and in your marriage. Set your goals. They should be clear, they should be specific, and they should have a time period. Secondly, have a monthly budget that you both agree on. Anybody had a budget that you agreed on and your spouse didn't agree? Often that's the version you have. In every marriage, there's a spender and a saver. Usually. Okay? And there are all kinds of crossfire going on based on whoever did what. Okay? And I've given you a form for a budget. Honestly, it's not difficult. There are only 3 major lines. What are the revenue coming in? What are the expenses going out? And what's the ending cash flow? Did I take in more than I spent? And if I have a goal and it requires $5,000 4 months from now, I'm going to need over $1,000 every month to get there. It's mathematical. Okay? But we begin to connect those short-term goals to that budget. And you don't need 30 lines, deep computer programs. You can take your checking account and your credit card statement and you can construct it very quickly. And over a 6-month period of time, you'll begin to know those that are normal expenses and those that are extraordinary. And you'll be able to have a roadmap. Then the third step that I love to call, have a business meeting with your spouse. That sounds so romantic. Be still my heart. Okay? Send your wife a text. Honey, I can't wait to get home tonight. We're going to do a business meeting. Wear something cute. The reason I call them a business meeting is we have to frame our mind for what we're going to talk about. It's not meant to be contentious. There is the business of, are we on track to hit our goals, yes or no? How are we doing? And if we're both committed to the goals and the pieces, we're evaluating how we're doing against that. It's a business meeting. And it doesn't need to be a different connotation. And if I go to the meeting expecting it's a business meeting, you aren't going to hurt my feelings, because we both agreed on the goals and the progress we're making is mathematical. Okay? There's no emotion involved. Now, there does tend to be some. Okay? But we're trying to build ourselves toward those pieces. Okay, everybody with me? So I believe that those habits are going to help you work together. And the important part is if one of you has a goal and the other one isn't there, it doesn't help. It doesn't get there. So the trick is we have to agree on the goals, and then we do the scorekeeping to say, are we getting closer to the goals or not? Okay? So I want your finances to unite you to your goals as a couple, not divide you. And mostly it's a context of how we do it. Now the last piece is I've learned, see, when I went to school for finance, I dreamed I could help couples. And I got out with I could create a balance sheet and a cash flow, and I could lay out 12 months so fast because they created all these great computer forms. I could copy the formula across, and I'd sit down with couples because the pastor at the church would come say, hey, Neil, would you sit down with this couple because they're struggling? Yeah, I'd love to. I'd give them a 12-column worksheet. They'd stare at me like I'd landed from Mars. And we'd come up with a plan, and we'd meet in a couple of months, and they'd gone nowhere. And it frustrated me. And I kept saying, what's going on? I thought I told them, here's the steps. Okay? Often the steps to take aren't lack of knowledge, it's lack of discipline. Okay? So learning how to walk together in discipline is an okay thing. And since you were 17 years old, you thought discipline was a bad thing. I couldn't wait to get out from my father's house, because then I get to do things the way I wanted to, right? It didn't do away with the laws of how this works. But I want to take you, and this is where there are a lot of good teachers. You know, there are people who are enrolled in a program. You all know the program. And people are maniacal about it. I want to give you a little freedom. And that's the fourth step. Because I believe that the most important financial step that we all need is what were you created to do. God put seed in every one of us. And that seed has a fruit. And for some of us, we've not known what that was. And so we've struggled in lots of different jobs and lots of different occupations, but we haven't been successful because we're doing what somebody else told us to do, not God. Okay? He created you to display a certain aspect of what you're called to do. And I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey that's going to start to walk into why I think this is so important. A number of years ago, Diane and I were asked to go to Brazil. And it was to go to do a business talk in Brazil. And I'm a businessman. I'm like, okay, I can do that. On an overnight flight to Sao Paulo. The plane is landing in Sao Paulo, and I feel a presence come over me in the heaviest way I've ever encountered. And I heard the words, I'm jealous for this nation. And I saw a face come through the flag of Brazil. It's not the normal way I wake up. Okay? And I immediately said, I'm not a missionary, not a pastor. I didn't have a flag of Brazil on my wall as a child. You got the wrong person. It's not me. It's not me. And it kept coming. Where hair on my arms, everything in me, I felt a weightiness that brought real fear. And I finally said, "What do you want me to do?" And he said, "I want you to get up and tell them to take their eyes off the Goliath in the land and put their eyes on the true King of Brazil, me." I said, "You know I'm not going to a church. I'm going to a business meeting, right?" You know, maybe he didn't get the itinerary. And I was shaken because I had a really tidy life up till then. Family here, church here, business over here. They don't touch. They don't overlap. That's how I was told the rules are. And I'm going to the stage with an interpreter to do this presentation, and I'm still arguing with God whether or not I'm going to do this. And I'm like, I don't even know how this works. Do a short talk, and I get to it, and I said, "I believe I was given a message for you." And I said, "I was told for you to take your eyes off the Goliath in the land and to put your eyes on the true King of Brazil, God." I can tell you there was an electrical charge that went through that auditorium like nothing I've ever seen. People started shaking under the power of God. People started weeping. It scared me. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I'm trying to walk off the stage so I wasn't at the scene of the crime. Maybe if I exit. I wasn't trained in how to handle revival. I'm like, get out of here quick. I'm coming down off the stage, and a man is running toward me. And through the interpreter, he said to me, "What are you doing for the next 2 hours?" I said, "I don't know. I'm here with my wife. We're attending." He said, "I want to take you to see the president." I said, "The president of what?" He said, "The country." Diane and I got to be ushered into the executive offices. We prayed over every cabinet member, and we've gotten to pray over them every time we've gone back. And I'm telling this because I want something to come alive in you. I had no idea what my assignment was. Matter of fact, I argued with God. I didn't do what you're supposed to do. And some of you don't know your assignment. You don't know what you're carrying. Okay? God is asking us to tell the world to take their eyes off the Goliath. You see, even in the promised land, there were giants. There are giants. That doesn't change your promise. If he told us to drive the giants out, he gave us a way to drive them out. He didn't say you're going to kick against the goat and it's going to give you a sore foot. Okay? We need to get our understanding of how his kingdom is coming forth clear enough that we don't retreat against the Goliaths. I've had to say numerous times, you're an uncircumcised Philistine and you're on land that doesn't belong to you. So do you. You need to say that over your family. You need to say that into your community because the curse is something God didn't place. It's something we came into agreement with. Okay? And I want to challenge you. I told some of the group, I think, this. You see, I grew up on a farm in North Dakota. And one seed of corn that went into the ground turned into 2 ears of corn on a stalk. Every ear has roughly 24 rows with 22 seeds. That means one seed turned into 1,540 some. Now I always ask people, this is my favorite business talk, by the way, now. Which of us taught the corn to do that? Which of us taught the corn to do that? You see, God built multiplication into his creation. Seed is the signature of God. He built that into his creation. But in our rebellion, in our brokenness, we've forgotten to ask him and to see the beauty that he's already built in. In fact, I've done some study. Do you know that there are over 22,000 different types of birds, species of bird? 22,000. It appears to me that God likes diversity. He didn't want them all evangelical. I mean, and I tell people, if I were doing it, I would have stopped at 5 right before pigeons because they don't have a reason. There are over 65,000 different species of trees. You see, God's creation is an incredibly complex ecosystem. And it's all interrelated. Flowers don't multiply other flowers. It takes somebody else to participate. We need each other. There's a cross-pollination that happens. It's built into creation. And if he built it into the natural creation, what if you and I could see perfectly in the Spirit? You know what he told me? It's 3 times more beautiful than the natural creation. Begin to understand what God built into all the people you encounter. And remember when I told you about the Jewish day? You all remember that? I believe that light is the substance that is waiting to be triggered into your life. That light is called revelation. It is the substance. Think about it in creation. What's the trigger that creates the greenhouse growing? Light. Right? You want to grow plants? You make a greenhouse so that light is intensified. That's a picture. It's meant to show us something. When a woman's egg in her womb is impregnated, doctors now know that a flash of light goes off inside her body, and it protects that seed. Hello? You and I need the revelatory power of God to come over the seed inside of us, so that our divine purpose is clear enough to us that we are not distracted. We're not dismayed by the things we see in the natural. Because God has invited us into his story, and he's given us an assignment to co-labor with him. And I want to give you a couple of verses to help you begin to understand this. The first one's in Hebrews 11. I'm sorry. Sometimes when I teach, I shake. But it's his gift to me. Hebrews 11. And we know this about, it's referred to as the faith chapter. But I want to take you to verse 13. And it talks about all the heroes of our faith, right? And he gets to verse 13 and he said, all these died in faith without receiving the promises, but having seen them and welcomed them from afar, and having confessed that they were strangers and exiles here on earth. For those who say such things make it clear that they are seeking a country of their own. And indeed, if they had been thinking of that country from which they went out, they would have had the opportunity to return. Hello? Which country is occupying your heart? You and I had our citizenship transferred to a different realm. You see, Abraham was after a city whose maker and builder was God. And it says that he saw into the future so clearly that he no longer cared about the seen world. I'm convinced that the Bible keeps telling us we have eyes to see and ears to hear, but we don't see and we don't hear. He's trying to invite us into his kingdom. He's trying to teach us how to carry something that most of us have never carried. And honestly, I've only carried by accident. I willingly admit that. But that encounter on the way to Brazil radically changed my life. And I was on the flight coming back from Brazil, and I said to God, what do you want me to do with this? Because Diane and I saw miraculous things happen. I'm like, well, what are we supposed to do? And I'm thinking, go to churches, talk to them, go to men's groups. I'm making a list in my head. And he said, I'd like you to share that in your business. I went, hold on, Lord. You're messing up those 3 piles. And I will tell you, having now watched what he was able to do in spite of me, I started to share it in the boardroom with the executive team, with the clients. More than half of them start weeping on the spot. There's a presence that people are desperate for. And God's waiting for you and I not to be distracted by those things that we can see, so that we can truly participate with him. I've told people I've now bought the all-inclusive pass. I'm on the ride. And almost every week I come home with 5 or 6 testimonies of people just wanting to be in God's presence, in business without a steeple. People that don't know God have heard his voice. It breaks my heart that we don't have enough kings in the church. Because I believe that God is unleashing something very powerful. Okay? Lack is not our mission. Okay? And he's told me, he said, Neil, I don't want you to touch my glory. And I was like, I don't know what you're telling me. I mean, I understand the Old Testament, you didn't touch the ark. And he said, no, that's not it. He said, if your hand touches my glory, you slow down the multiplication. Because what's in you is mixed. It's part flesh and part spirit. What's in me is all good. But he lets us go with him. And that's my prayer for each of you, that you begin to have the awe and the reverence over what he wants to do. When you encounter people, don't let your mind tell you what's going on. Let him show you. There's much that we can go over, but I want to leave you with this. Value the time you spend with God so that he can rewrite your playbook. Because most of us have gotten used to manna, and that's not what he's after. Isn't it interesting if you go study and you even ask Jewish people, what's the significance of the Jordan River? It's the crossing over between flesh and spirit. It's where Abraham and Lot split their territory. Interesting. There's all kinds of pictures in the Bible that are telling us we can either be in the flesh or we can be in the spirit. What destiny do you want? Out of what riches do you want to partake? And as I wrap up this section, I want to take you to John 14:12. It's become my favorite verse in the Bible because it's so scary and so shocking, I took it out of my Bible for most of my life. Still with me, Diane? Cool. John 14:12. How many have received an inheritance? I'd like to tell you, you all have. I'm about to give it to you. John 14:12 says, truly, truly, this happens to be Jesus speaking. Amen. Not today, but I mean in the Bible here. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, you will do also. And greater works than these will you do, because I go to the Father. How many have accepted your inheritance? Greater works than Jesus. Hello? I don't know if your translation was as clear as mine. Greater works than Jesus. That's what it says. It's time for us to come alive. Greater works than Jesus. And I've spent hours arguing with God over this because I've said, that even feels arrogant to say that. They might not even invite me back to the church if I tell them that. But what father doesn't want greater things for his children? It goes to the heart of our Heavenly Father. He's wanting to give you more than Jesus had on this earth. He's trying to give that to you. I can't comprehend it. In fact, he's actually given me a very clear speech. He said, Neil, I don't need your understanding, I just need your obedience. Ouch. And how many know the more obedient you are, the more your understanding is going to increase? Okay? But I didn't realize the last part of that verse. Because I go to the Father. You see, he came from the supernatural to walk here on earth and to show us how restoration happens. And he returned to the Father to reconnect us to a divine destiny. He did it. It's not dependent on you and I. As I was meditating on it, I said, Lord, I can't do this. And he said, I know. Ouch. He said, read it more clearly. For I returned to the Father. You got a free pass. You got an opportunity to participate in his kingdom on something he did, not something you did. He's taken us along. The only trick is, do we believe it? Okay? There's no risk. And so I want you to begin to dream with God. I want you to come alive. I want you to see into the future the things that God has asked you to speak into existence, to walk alongside him. The world is desperate for a powerful church. They're desperate, guys. They're desperate. We're not going to be perfect. Stop trying to defend it. I want to grab hold of him, and I want to release what he tells me to do. It will do infinitely more than I can ask or think. Okay? All right. Diane, you want?
I think I'm going to ask Neil to pray that over you. If that is something that you're desiring, but at the same time, I want you to pray over their families.
Yeah.
Okay? And I know when I see the Spirit stirred up in him, it's time for you to receive. I would say a couple things on just cleanup pieces. We would love a couple of you to do a video testimony of how you perceived this weekend. So if you could have somebody grab them with, you can use my camera or anybody's camera and just stand in a quiet place and we just record, how did the weekend go? We'd love for you to fill out the evaluations. That helps us change and get better. And if you please would put up our little QR code when you're done with the prayer, we would love for you to go ahead and get onto Instagram. I'm like convinced the USA is going to beat Brazil. I want to win. Okay, so
I'm going to pray, but I want to give you two fast snippets. Sorry. As it relates to covenant, I want you to walk away with this. You know what the Hebrew word for covenant is? Berith. You know what berith is? Circumcise. I saw a couple of you guys flinch. You see, the Old Testament talks about circumcision as fruitfulness in the flesh. The New Testament talks about fruitfulness. Unless I circumcise your heart, you have no part with me. That's the core of God's kingdom. And we give you one page of why covenant is so important. It's page, what, 94? There are a number of scriptures in the Bible that talk about the power of covenant and why that's how it works. You actually have to come into agreement, and that agreement is covenant. When you come in covenant, your power goes up. And there's a number of scripture verses written there for you. I want you to grab hold of it, because I don't know a Christian that I don't talk to today that doesn't say, where's the power? I can tell you where the power is. It's in covenant. I want you to have it. Okay? And so part of my prayer for you is that the Lord strengthen your covenant with him, John 17, that we may be one as he is one. Okay? But I also want you to learn how to be in covenant together with your spouse and with the body of Christ. The Bible refers to us as the bride of Christ. I don't know if that was a misprint, but I think he was trying to wrap something together for us to make us understand how we were to walk. Okay? So it's been a great privilege to be with you, but I want to pray over you. And I want to pray this covenant, that God seal it deeply within you and within your family. His desire, not mine, his desire for you is so much bigger. Tonight.
Mm-hmm. And if you
What? Yeah. Heavenly Father, we ask that your light come. Breath of God, breathe on the seed that you placed inside each person here, each couple, each family. This church, Lord, set them on fire. Lord, we thank you that you built the perfect plan. And that you anticipated that we would have weakness, that we would fall, that we'd struggle. But that doesn't have to be the last chapter, because you made restitution. Lord, we freely receive your blood. We receive your blood to seal the covenant. Lord, I call forth the power, not to just overcome evil, Lord, but to do the good works. Lord, the good works, the good works. I call forth the good works. Where that seed has lied dormant because of disappointment or confusion, I break that bondage to say, come forth. New life, come forth. Lord, where there needs to be healing, we just ask that your hand touch deeply. We don't have to run from your judgment. We have to allow you to do the surgery, Lord, in our lives. And so we surrender so that we might see the victory. We call forth your promise that we learn to love in the manner that you taught us, that we lay down our life. Lord, I pray a blessing beyond what we can ask or think. We call forth that you continue to give us dreams, and that you give us strategy for how to accomplish. Help us to hear your voice. Lord, and to you all the glory. Help us not to get in the way, but help us to fan the flame. Fan the flame, Lord. Hallelujah. We thank you.
I feel like God is dropping some seeds of purpose and destiny into some of you. Like there's kind of an awakening, kind of an aha moment, like, oh, we didn't think that's what we were going to do, or we didn't think that was purpose for us. And I feel like I've heard a couple of them. If you don't mind, I'd like to give you a couple. Is that couple that's in you're in black and you're in a brown sweater right here? Yep, that's you. Yep. I honestly feel with all my heart that that's actually a literal word for you, that you've actually gotten to the point of you're inspired to do something, that you may look like you're gray in the hair, but you've got something to do, and you know it. And I feel that God's honoring the request to give you the years to do it.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but I don't get the meanings too. And for this couple in the front row, one of the things that I heard and I saw, that there's like been a burden of responsibility on you that's been really kind of heavy lately. And I literally saw you as a little girl just like dancing and free and being able to just, I don't know, you were just a lover of people, and you haven't been able to do that lately. Whatever the heaviness has been going on with you. And that's how God still sees you. 100% how he still sees you. It's like you're a little butterfly and you get to go from piece to piece and just make people happy when you get there. And he literally wants to release you to do that. He's like, let me cover the burden. I'll cover the burden. You go be who you were created to be. It's like 100% you're an encourager. You can actually walk into the darkest of people's moments and they walk away going, what was so bad about that? And he wants you to get back to your calling of being an encourager. Right? It's the enemy that's come against what's going on right now. Yeah? So you can understand that relates to you? Okay. Yeah. And my last one, can I do one more?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can do as many as you want.
Okay. For the couple in the back, with you have green on, and yep, you're in a brown coat. That's you guys smiling. Yep.
Might not be green.
Yeah. Oh, is it green? Is it blue green? Sorry, can't see. There is like I don't think you understand the magnitude of the call on your life for almost an entire people group. That you have a people group that you're supposed to reach. And you've known it. You've known it forever. You know, and it's like this block, that block, this block, that block. You know, I don't have time. They're not listening. I don't even know what the things are, the discouragements are. But he wants you to be released to do that. He's 100% saying, go get them. I'll provide the resources. I'll provide the time. I'll provide, you know, what you need. But I need you to have faith to go get them.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Yes?
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Do you want to give a couple? This is not what we were planning on doing, but hey. Hey. We've been on a loose path since we got here. I love you guys. I love you guys. No one's kind of going, well, that's not on the agenda. Yeah.
This couple, third row in the middle, yeah, the blue-green. I feel like you've been in maybe a season of waiting, not knowing which way to turn maybe, or maybe it's transition. I don't know the right word necessarily, but I feel like you've in the secret been being prepared. It might not look like it on the outside, but God's saying it's time. It's time. And you don't have to have everything done. And I think that's been a worry or a concern. And he's saying, no, I'm not leaving you. I'm putting you in the game. Okay? I don't know where it is. I've been asking if it was what role, but you've prayed. I believe you tarried. And so I just want to encourage you that season's over. Amen. Yeah, amen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a couple right behind the pastor in the black check. I want to. God has seen your heart as you've prayed and prayed and prayed and waited and prayed. And I want to say today he's taken off that cloak of maybe it's just a darkness of not feeling like it was going to happen. And he wants you to begin to celebrate. It's not just thankfulness. He wants you to begin to celebrate. And I don't know what that is, but he's saying celebrate. I want you to dance. I want you to walk into something that is beautiful. Okay? Yeah. Okay.
So I want to say this over you pastors, because I heard something that just didn't, I was like, oh, that's really encouraging, but I don't know the history of this church, so you can know I'm blind, but because you have put him first, because that's been the mandate way before it was cool to do worship or prayer rooms, or like it's been like it is the foundation. He said, because they've put me first, I'm going to send them the least of these. Now I was like, well, okay, that's encouraging. But what he said is, I'm going to send them the least of these, just like the woman at the well, so that they can tell the city. That restoration of the least of these is probably going to be more than you could hope for or handle. But it's not going to be you doing the work. It's going to be them through their complete restoration.
Yeah. Yeah, let me put a comma on it. So the word I heard for this church was, he's weaponizing love. Okay? I've never even put those words together ever before, But it's like he's saying, I'm weaponizing love because that's the attraction. You guys have prepared the ground, but it's weaponizing love so that people will come here to actually find peace. They're going to find peace. Amen? Yeah.
Okay, you've had probably about enough of us that we can cram into a day and a half. We want to thank you. We're honored to be here with you. It has been a real blessing, and for you to share what you've shared, and allowed us to little peek behind the curtain and a little bit into your lives. The only favors we ask you is please turn in your evaluation. Do I sound like a teacher? Please turn in your evaluation. If someone could please go get a couple testimonies, if you have someone in mind. And all of you, take out your camera and take a picture of the QR code on the page. Now that we have the right one, thank you.
My ask is a little harder.
Oh, no.
This was not the end. This was the beginning.
100%.
I want you to join the army. Families are waiting on us, guys. Families are waiting on us to join the army. The devil doesn't get anyone. No one. He doesn't deserve him. God gave us the charge over it, and so I want join the army in whatever way God moves you. I don't know it. But there is something that God's calling each of us to do. Okay? Most of us have pewed too long.
Pewed. That's a word. Pewed.
Okay? God's army is not sitters. So I want to just challenge you to join the army, do you whatever. I want to also promise you that if there's something you need in helping go after families, ask us. We're here to help you.
Yes.
We want to arm you the best way we can. And
that's why I want you connected.
Reach out to us. We're happy to say, look, you need 5 more people to do whatever, they're yours. Okay? We love you. Thank you so much for allowing us in.
Yeah.
That's not an easy task, what Diane just did for us. That was awkward for some of us, challenging, beautiful, necessary. It was extravagant. Thank you. So, Kim, if you'll grab those books. If anybody hasn't got a book yet, there's still some more books out on the book table. These ones were donated. If you haven't got one yet and you're sure you're going to read it, not only read it, but leave a review. She needs some Amazon reviews. So everybody that picked up a book, as you're reading those chapters, get on Amazon, find that book, and leave a review. Put up the giving slide, please. We want to take an offering up for this great couple that has sacrificed for us. But as we know in the kingdom, when we sow a seed, we receive from that seed as well. So if you haven't got a book yet and you want one, raise your hand. Kim's got 3 of them to hand out. But there's a couple ways to give at Touch Heaven. Whatever gets given today, we're going to make sure it gets sent down to your ministry and added into you. Those willing to do testimonies, we're going to have you meet Kim back in the chapel, and we're going to take your testimonies. www.touchheaven.com. You can go there and give. You can text to give at 330-845-6005. We have a church app. If you're in the house, if you've visited today, join our church app. Find a way. I think there's a way in the back we can show you how to get on the app. Just find out what's going on here. I want to thank Pastor Jim and his wife for coming. What a blessing to have you in the house. If you're not from here and you're around Talmadge, go visit them at their church. And I don't know how to end it, except we got a little bit more for you tomorrow, so make sure you come tomorrow. There's been an impartation in the house, and I think I see Pastor Laura Lee and Apostle Frank. Everything that is here is because of the sacrifice and surrender of their life. And John 17 is the foundation verse for this house, as well as firm foundation with fresh revelation. And that's what we talked about. He's prayed for us. He's imparted something to us. Begin to expect that encounter that Neil talks about and the words that they're given. Begin to expect that in your lives. They're going to come. So a couple ways to give. We got envelopes in the back. We got some black boxes in the back. You can give that way. See Kim as well. We got a lot going on. We love you. We thank you. We release you. 9:45 is worship tomorrow. We'll be setting the atmosphere for the great things God's getting ready to do. One more time for the Arnolds and the Family Collective.co.